you don't come to the end of a painting, you come to a point where you know you have to stop. And I think the great artists know where to stop, and those of us that are kind of tagging on behind, kind of, sometimes we go just a bit too far and you destroy the whole thing. We don't do quite enough and it's a bit weak. That's what it's like being a visual artist.
16 measures of solo.
1989.
And then an additional 8 as a
Tin Machine Special.
Then we break
was that the original?
The original.
Because it was pretty much an experiment in its own time, in its own way, in its own nature. I think a Tin Machine probably embodies some of the best and some of the worst. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. So of the work that I've done over the last 10 years, anyway, it had extraordinary high points and some real downers, which comes with the territory of experimentation. Not all of it works, but when it does work, it works really well. And again, it's a thing that Brian always uses when I get a bit timid about the work that I'm doing. He says, don't forget that in music you can crash your plane and walk away from it, that art really isn't that full of life-threatening situations. What Brian brings to a situation is a very sophisticated sense of analysis. He can look at something and gauge its import. He can examine a piece of music and find its real strengths and also its weaknesses, and he'll tend to frame a little piece in the middle and say that 10 minutes is really interesting, but the songs either side are a waste of time and nothing's happening there. But his conceptual abilities, when he brings those into a work situation, are really a help to the creative aspects of what you're doing. A small, mobile, highly intelligent unit in a tweed jacket. And then the next bit is, I am with Nay, hey. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I am with Nay, hey. A lot of the recording situation for Brian and myself is sort of a what-if kind of situation. It's like there's a lot of play involved with what we do, and unless you have musicians who are completely in tune with that, it can produce great hostility in the studio, which is something that did happen in the late 70s when we worked together. A couple of the guys in our band at that time found what Brian and I wanted to do kind of stupid and childish, and I guess they were probably right, but it produces great results. And this time around, I purposely chose musicians who would feel at ease in a kind of a slightly humorous situation. Mike Garson, of course, is from the Aladdin Sane period of my work, and was always a really out there, fairly eccentric musician. I had Erdal Kizilcay, who's a Turkish musician who I've worked with over the last 5 years, playing bass and keyboards. Reeves Gabrels from Tin Machine. Sterling Campbell was the drummer, who was also the drummer on Black Tie, White Noise, and subsequently is now working with Soul Asylum, so I'm afraid we've lost him for the tour. And we had Carlos Alamo, who worked almost continuously with me, off and on, since 1973. Oh, Patty, I think I've lost my way. What a fantastic death album. Patty. The song itself, Heart's Filthy Lesson, because it's made up of juxtapositions and fragments of information, doesn't have a straightforward, coherent message to it. In fact, none of the album has any message. It's really a compression of information. It's just information, make of it what you will. But I guess my input into Heart's Filthy Lesson is that the filthy lesson in question is the fact that life is finite. That realization, when it comes usually later in life, can either be really a daunting prospect, or it makes things a lot clearer. Unfortunately for me, I see it without a sense of unease, and for me, knowing that I've got a finite length of time on Earth actually clarifies things and makes me feel quite buoyant.
So there makes me a 4-5-6 split on both cameras.
Okay, stand by, slate up, and play back. Camera rolling.